My phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I wiped my hands on a towel, picked it up without thinking. It was Owen. "Hey, Mom, the venue's tight. No place for you at the wedding. Hope you understand." That was it. No sorry. No call. Just words on a screen. I stood there. Still. The fridge hummed. The clock ticked. Outside, a car door slammed. Somewhere far away, but in my kitchen, everything went quiet. I read it again, and again, as if maybe I'd missed something, a joke, a just kidding. There wasn't one. My throat tightened. I tried to breathe slow. Didn't work. I sat down at the table, the one where we used to eat pancakes every Sunday when he was 10. He liked blueberry syrup, hated the skin on milk. The chair across from me was empty. Had been for years. Still, I looked at it like maybe someone would explain what had just happened. I didn't cry. Not right away. I just held the phone like it might ring again, like he might say, "That wasn't meant for you." But the screen stayed dark. He wasn't just my son. He was my only son. The one I raised alone after Frank died. The one I gave everything for. College. Rent. His first car. Every holiday dinner cooked by hand, no shortcuts. I scrolled up. Saw the message from 2 days ago, me reminding him I'd help with last-minute errands. No response. Now I knew why. I called him. Once. Straight to voicemail. Again. Still nothing. I didn't want to leave a message. Not like this. I opened the family group chat. Typed, "Just letting you know I won't be at Owen's wedding." Sent it. Read it. Deleted it. What was the point? I stood. Poured myself a glass of water. Spilled some on the counter. Didn't wipe it. Didn't care. Every instinct said call someone, say something. But who? My sister would just sigh. My niece would pretend she hadn't seen it. Everyone was already on Megan's side. Megan, his fiancée. The one who called me overbearing for asking about the rehearsal dinner. The one who told Owen, "Your mom's sweet, but this is our time." I should have seen this coming. I didn't. I leaned against the sink, held on to the edge, because if I didn't, I might fall into the kind of silence that doesn't let go. I turned the phone over. Face down, not off. Just done. That night, I made a sandwich I didn't finish. Wrapped the rest in foil. Put it in the fridge like I used to when Owen was in college. Like maybe he'd walk in and ask if he could have it. He wouldn't. I didn't go to bed. I just sat at the window. Watched the porch light flicker. Listened to nothing. In the morning, I opened my phone. Scrolled to my favorites. Frank's name was still there. 5 years since the cancer. Still felt like yesterday. He would have said something. He wouldn't have let this happen. But he wasn't here. Only me. A house that felt colder. A message that said everything. And silence that followed it loud as a scream. I stood, made coffee. 1 mug. No second cup. Then I reached for my phone again. Not to call, just to look. And that's when I saw the next message. I flipped the phone over, screen down. No reply, no comment. Just silence and wood. I stood. Walked to the sink. Turned on the faucet. Turned it off again. Sat down. Then stood again. My fingers hovered over the phone, not to answer, just muscle memory. I opened my contacts. Scrolled. Not fast, not slow. Just enough to find something familiar. Frank Langley. Still there. Still between Fiona and gas company. 5 years gone and I never took him out. I stared at the name like it might light up on its own. For a second I forgot. Genuinely forgot. My mind reached for something steady, and there he was. I clicked the name, saw the old call logs, scrolled down. 3 voicemails. I never erased them. Couldn't make myself do it. Never played them again either. They just lived there. Quiet, untouched. Like a door I wasn't ready to close but couldn't walk through anymore. I didn't press play. I just stared at the screen until it dimmed. Back to the home screen. I opened the family group chat, Langley Sibs. Me, my sister Ruth, my brother Dean, and my cousin Trina. Typed a short message. Just a heads up, I won't be attending Owen's wedding. Paused. Waited. Nothing. A full minute. Then 5. Then 30. No read receipts. No bubble typing. No follow-up. I backed out of the app and deleted the message. I wasn't surprised, just aware. Aware of how many people could miss you while you're standing right in front of them. I walked to the kitchen, pulled out the coffee tin, brewed a small pot. Black, 2 sugars, stirred slowly. The spoon clinked against the sides of the mug like a bell in an empty church. While the water boiled, I sorted the mail. Junk, a bill, another donation request from the alumni fund. I wrote a check, sealed the envelope, stacked it neatly by the door. Lunch. I made a sandwich. Turkey, 1 slice of tomato, half a leaf of romaine. I ate 1 half, wrapped the other. Out of habit, I put it on a second plate, a matching one. Set it across from me on the table. Sat down. The second chair stayed empty. Had been for years, but I always kept it set, in case. I picked up my mug, let the heat sit in my palms, watched the steam twist into nothing. No music, no radio, no footsteps upstairs, just me and the hum of the refrigerator. I didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't touch my phone again. I just looked at the empty plate across from me and said low and steady, to no one, "You wouldn't have let this happen, Frank." Then I stood up, poured the rest of the coffee into a thermos and packed it for later. The text came just as I was folding Owen's old college hoodie. "Hey, Mom, I know you're not coming, but Megan said, you're still doing the $2,000 toward the wedding gift, right? It's not about the invite. It's about family." I didn't blink. I folded the sweatshirt, slowly pressed it flat, and dropped it into the donation bag. $2,000. No seat. No plate. No presents. But I was still listed on the bill. Still expected to contribute for a family I was no longer counted in. I walked to the kitchen. Poured myself another coffee. Black. No sugar. Let it burn a little going down. "It's about family," he said. The words stuck. I used to think family was a place, a table, a shared last name. Now I saw it for what it had become, a series of quiet transactions, a game of who gives the most and who gets to erase the rest. I sat with the mug in my hand, not even pretending to be shocked. That part had passed. Now there was only the dull ache of recognition. They didn't want me there, but they wanted my money. A month ago, Megan had sent me a florist's invoice. "Lock this in before Friday, thanks." No please, no explanation. Just a Venmo request and a deadline. I paid it. Transferred the deposit. Forwarded the receipt. Thought it meant I belonged. Thought it was a sign that I was part of something. But now, the dress fittings I paid for, the planning sessions I hosted, the down payments I quietly made while Megan flitted from spa appointment to wine tastings, none of it mattered. Not enough for a chair. Not even enough for an apology. I opened the drawer beside the kitchen table. Pulled out the envelope where I kept checks for bills, emergencies, birthday cards. There it was. Already written. Already signed. $2,000. I had filled it out 2 weeks ago before the message, when I still believed I'd be clapping for my son as he danced his first dance. When I still thought family included me. I held the check under the light, traced the ink with my finger. Then I tore it in half. Then again, and again, until it was just paper scraps, nothing more. I dropped them into the trash and stood still for a long while, listening to the hum of the fridge, the faint traffic outside the hollow quiet of my home. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just whispered to the room, "Not this time. Not this time. Owen." I went back to the table, picked up my phone, reread the message one last time. It's not about the invite. It's about family. I deleted it. Then I finished my coffee. I opened Instagram just to check the weather. Instead, I saw Megan's face. She was laughing, head-tilted champagne flute in hand, white lace dress catching the sunlight. Behind her, the garden I'd scouted months ago. The one I told her was perfect. That tiny cafe with wrought iron chairs climbing roses and a private patio no one else had thought to book. I had booked it. I had secured the date, paid the deposit, sent the follow-up emails when the manager forgot to confirm the vegan menu options. Now I was scrolling through a party I wasn't invited to. The bridesmaids wore the exact pale gold dresses I'd helped them pick. I had sat beside Megan at the boutique, flipping through racks while she sipped espresso and said, "Too shiny, too matronly, too expensive. Wait, maybe this one." I'd taken the dresses to my tailor, paid the rush fees, drove them home in garment bags hanging in the back seat, like promise. And now, they were all there, standing in the sunlight, holding gifts wrapped in cream paper, posing with their arms around each other like sisters. Not me. Not even a mention of me. The caption under one photo read, "Celebrating the bride-to-be with my favorite girls." A perfect day. Couldn't have asked for more. I zoomed in. That was my tablecloth. My centerpiece design hydrangeas in vintage teacups. I'd tested that idea at my kitchen table, arranging flowers until my fingers ached. The sting didn't come in a flood. It crept in slowly. I kept scrolling. There were photos of the pastries, fruit tarts, lemon bars, the exact selection I had suggested in my original mood board. There were photos of the custom name tags, my font, my formatting, even the blush ribbon I'd sourced from a specialty shop in Portland. None of them had thought to remove my fingerprints. They'd just removed me. I clicked off the app, locked the screen. Then I sat still. Not angry, not even surprised. Just hollow. I stood, walked to the kitchen, opened the fridge. There was leftover chicken and a salad I'd prepped 3 days ago. I stared at it. Closed the door, boiled water instead, instant oatmeal. A spoon. I sat at the counter and ate in silence. No party, no champagne, no gold dress. Just oatmeal and an empty house. I had bought a bottle of wine weeks ago. A crisp white Megan liked. I'd planned to bring it to the shower. I found it still on the rack untouched. I opened it anyway. Poured one glass. Set it on the table. Took a sip. Then I grabbed a pen and my notepad. Wrote one line across the top. They needed me, but not visibly. I circled it. Once. Twice. Then I tore off the page and slipped it into a folder with the old invoices and payment receipts. I'd kept everything. Even the guest list spreadsheet. I walked it over to my desk, laid the folder flat, and smoothed the cover. They thought I was gone. They thought I was irrelevant. They didn't know I'd saved everything. And I wasn't done. I pulled open the bottom drawer of my desk. The metal groaned. Papers shifted. I hadn't looked through these files in weeks, not since I believed I'd be at the wedding, sitting quietly in the third row, wearing something modest, smiling through someone else's spotlight. But now I needed to see it all for what it really was. I slid out the red folder marked Wedding, Owen and Megan. Heavy, too thick for something I was no longer part of. I sat down, spread it open. There they were, contracts, invoices, correspondence, printed and highlighted, clipped and initialed. Venue the Carmichael Estate. Date reserved, deposit received, cancellation clause, underlined. Florist, wild ferns and petals. Full order logged with specific mention of white ranunculus and blush peonies. My signature at the bottom. Caterer Luma table. Farm to table 3 courses. Gluten-free options for 2 guests. Final payment due 1 week before event. All of it under my name. Maris Langley, event consultant. Some even said CEO because that's what I had written. What I'd used to lock it all in. They hadn't asked. They didn't care who signed so long as it got done. And I had done it. Every call, every quote, every detail. I hadn't signed as mom. I hadn't signed as guest of the bride and groom. I had signed as the responsible party. I stared at the paper, not with emotion, with clarity. This was not sentiment. This was structure. Legal. Documented. Mine. They used my business experience when it suited them. My negotiation skills. My tax ID. My vendor relationships. They treated me like an employee, but not a visible one. Not worthy of a seat, but good enough for the work. I flipped through to the master schedule. Timeline of deliveries, coordination contacts, all routed through my number, my email, my business. I had absorbed the cost through Clara and Langley Events LLC, an entity I opened after Frank passed, something I built quietly, piece by piece, in the long nights of widowhood when grief needed somewhere to go. Owen never asked how I survived those first 2 years without his father. Never asked how I kept the house, how I stayed afloat. He just assumed I always would, because I always had. I placed the folder gently back on the desk. Then I reached for the drawer below and pulled out the old accordion file. Receipts, deposits, a separate copy of every signed agreement, each with their own clause, each with their own trigger. Each one said the same thing. Final payment due 7 days prior, or agreement subject to termination without refund. I knew that clause well. Sarah had helped me write it. I reached for my phone, typed her name. Sarah Rains, law office. Still starred, still on speed dial. I didn't press call. Not yet. Instead, I leaned back and looked out the window. The sky was overcast. Heavy, but not hopeless. They thought they'd erased me, but they hadn't read the fine print. They hadn't checked the name on the line that mattered, and they hadn't counted on the woman they left out, still owning the ground beneath their feet. I stood, walked to the kitchen, and poured the last of the coffee into a fresh mug. I parked behind the bakery on Elm and walked through the side door of the law office. No receptionist, just the low hum of a copier and the smell of toner and lemon wipes. Sarah looked up from her desk. "Didn't expect you till Thursday," she said. I dropped the red folder onto her table. It hit with a thud. "I don't have until Thursday." She didn't ask questions, just pulled her glasses down from her head and opened the flap. 10 minutes passed in quiet. She flipped, red circled, flagged. At one point she whistled low through her teeth. "The florist?" she asked. "Wild ferns." I paid the deposit, through my LLC. She nodded. "You didn't just pay, you signed as contract holder. Terms state final balance is due the Monday before. If not received, vendor reserves the right to cancel, no refund." I said nothing. Just watched her highlight clause after clause. "The caterer," she continued. "Same." She flipped to the Luma table contract. "Your name again," she said. "And here, look." She tapped the clause at the bottom. "Delivery of service is contingent upon event planner approval 72 hours prior. You're listed as planner of record." "They didn't read it," I said. "They just forwarded things." "Megan's been using my contacts, my vendor discounts, my tax ID." Sarah closed the folder and leaned back. "So you're invisible until someone needs a signature." "Exactly." "You want to pull the plug?" she asked. "No," I said. "Not yet." "You want leverage." "I want clarity." Sarah tapped the desk. "Let's walk through this." We pulled up the calendar. "The florist's balance is due Sunday night," she said. "The caterer Monday morning. If no payments or confirmation, they'll hold. Venue mine. Deposit in full. Final guest list hasn't been submitted." Sarah laughed under her breath. "They threw a party and forgot to invite the woman holding the power switch." I didn't laugh. I traced the edge of the desk with my finger. "I don't want a scene," I said. "I just want the truth to land where it belongs." Sarah opened her laptop. Started drafting an email. "We'll prep a pause notice. Quiet, legal. No drama unless they push." I nodded. "And the LLC?" she asked. Still active. Still mine. Good, she said, because everything they're building rests on your silence. I stood, gathered the folder, tucked it under my arm. They think I'm gone. Sarah met my eyes. They think wrong. I left through the back again. The wind had picked up. Leaves scattered near the curb. I didn't hurry. I just walked. The call came just after 11. Not from Owen. From Megan. Hi, Maris. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time. Always the performance. Sweetness in every syllable, like too much syrup poured over something already spoiled. I didn't say anything. Just waited. So we're down to the last few items, she continued. Just little things, really. Final linen invoice cake table runners, backup chairs. Still silence from me. She filled it fast. I know we said we'd cover some of it, but with the wine upgrades and the shuttle van and... Well, Alex has really gone above and beyond. He's so generous, but the planner said the linen payment is still outstanding, and I figured since you're familiar with that vendor, maybe you could handle it, Alex. There it was again. Not, Owen said. Not, we decided. But Alex, I didn't explain. I didn't justify. I didn't list the money I'd already spent or the names I'd called or the hours I'd logged. I just wrote one word. No. Sent it, then turned my phone face down. No follow-up? No, are you sure? No, we understand. Just the kind of silence that stretches thin like old glass, tight, fragile, full of pressure. I didn't check it again for hours. When I did, there was nothing new. No calls from Owen. No texts from Megan. Not even a passive-aggressive emoji from Alex. The linen invoice went unpaid. The delivery deadline passed. I received a polite email from the vendor asking for an update. I forwarded it to Megan without a note. They didn't reply. I spent that afternoon trimming the dead branches from the hydrangeas in the front yard. The shears sliced clean. My wrists ached. I liked the ache. It made sense. It came from effort. By evening, the air had turned thick. Clouds rolled in slow and low, but it never rained. I left the porch light off. The next morning, I checked the driveway out of habit. No car, no visit. Owen usually dropped by once a week, just 10 minutes. Sometimes to pick up mail. Sometimes to return a casserole dish. Sometimes I think to feel like a good son. But that week, nothing. No knock, no hug, no glance in my direction. I brewed coffee, ate toast with too much butter, read the paper out loud just to hear a voice in the room. I wasn't angry, just aware. Aware of the shift, aware that one small no could echo louder than years of quiet yes. I wiped the counter twice, checked the calendar. 11 days until the wedding. All plans still moving. Still built on my foundation. And yet, I wasn't part of it. The absurdity settled around me like dust. Not heavy, but constant. They didn't replace me. They just expected I wouldn't notice I'd been erased. I walked to the study, opened the bottom drawer, pulled out the binder again. Red tab. Vendor confirmations. Green tab deposits. Yellow tab. Termination clauses. They were still valid. All of it, but I didn't make a call, didn't threaten, didn't shake the tree. I just placed the binder on the table and left it open. Then I poured a second cup of coffee, sat in the chair by the window, and waited. I opened my laptop, clicked slow, eyes steady, hands calm, inbox first. I typed Megan in the search bar. Dozens of emails surfaced requests, invoices, passive commands disguised as updates. Just need you to lock this in. Here's the balance. Could you cover? Don't forget to confirm by 3 p.m. today. I clicked each one. Downloaded PDFs. Saved the attachments. Cross-referenced every vendor name. Then I opened the contracts folder. Searched for matches. The florist, my name. The bakery, my deposit. The venue. My signature tied to a refundable clause no one else read. Every dotted line pointed back to me. I pulled a notepad closer, jotted down dates, deadlines, expiration clauses. Then I opened my calendar and circled the ones that mattered most, ones that still had wiggle room. I wasn't trying to sabotage anything, not yet. I just wanted to remember what they forgot, who held the receipts. Because erasure isn't only about absence, it's about assumptions. They assumed I would disappear quietly. They assumed I'd fund the wedding sit, in silence smile at photos I wasn't in. But I didn't erase the emails. I didn't delete the invoices. I didn't forget how to trace power with a paper trail. I opened our old family album next. Not for sentiment, but proof. Owen's 6th birthday. Owen's prom. Owen's college graduation. All parties I planned. All tables I set. All moments no one paid me for and no one remembered. That didn't make me bitter. It made me sharp. I clicked on my desktop, created a folder, Final Control, Wedding Drag, Drop. Screenshots, clauses, timestamps. Every thanks they forgot was replaced by a document they overlooked. Every we've got it handled sat next to a vendor contract still tied to my LLC. I didn't need revenge, not then, just clarity. I wasn't powerless. I wasn't invited, but I was still involved. By choice, no. By paper, yes. And paper doesn't lie. At 3:12 p.m., a new email came in. Lux Threads Linen Co. Subject reconfirmation needed or service will be paused. I didn't respond. I just started. Then forwarded it to my lawyer. No message, no signature. Just one quiet transfer of knowledge, not noise. Outside, a delivery truck rolled past the house. Music spilled out the window. Someone laughed. I closed the curtain, sipped my coffee, then moved to the next folder. I sent the email at 9:03 a.m. No subject line, no greeting, just one sentence. Please proceed per Clause 4C failure to pay voids the contract. Attached copies of the signed agreements. Highlighted sections. Date-stamped payment logs showing the final balances unpaid. I hit send, then I closed the laptop and made eggs. Slow. One yolk broke in the pan and I didn't fix it. I just let it cook. That way slightly ruined, still enough. It had been 7 days since anyone called me. 7 days of silence. 7 days since I said no to linen costs and stopped pretending I still had a place at that wedding. They hadn't paid the caterer, the rentals, the audio team. Not out of cruelty, I suspected, but carelessness. Someone else was supposed to handle it. Someone else was supposed to sweep in and close the loop. That someone had been me. But not anymore. I checked the time, 9:41 a.m. At 9:45, the first out-of-office reply hit my inbox from the venue manager. At 10:02, the florist responded. We're sad to part ways, but we understand. All refunds will go to the listed client of record Maris Langley. I sipped my coffee. Black. Not for strength, just for control. They thought they were in charge, that I was just another checkbook in the shadows. But every contract, every clause, had one name listed under primary contact. One mailing address. One signer of record, mine. Because in the early planning days, before the lines were drawn, before the text stopped, before I became the ghost in the group thread, I was still mom. Still trusted. Still necessary. So when they forwarded tasks, I took them. When they sent links, I clicked. When they said, "Can you just handle this part?" I did. And now, the whole thing sat on a foundation I had quietly built. Brick by legal brick. I didn't need a scene. I didn't need revenge. All I did was pull the pin and walk away. The florist. Canceled. The chairs. On hold. The dessert table. Gone. By noon, I had 5 emails confirming terminations. 3 refunds initiated. 1 silent phone call from an unknown number. I didn't pick up. I just filed it under consequences. By afternoon, I checked the mailbox. Pulled out 1 envelope addressed to me, return address, the wedding planner's office. Inside, a final invoice marked Void. Scribbled across it, someone had written, "Was this intentional? Yes. Yes, it was." At 6:22 p.m., I heard the first voicemail. Owen's voice. Shaky. Hesitant. The kind of tone you use when you realize the power dynamic has shifted and you're still pretending it hasn't. "Hey, Mom. I think there's been some confusion. Megan said the florist canceled. We just wanted to check. Can you call me back?" I didn't. Not yet. I opened the last email of the day, one from the AV team, confirming they'd removed the lighting rig and refunded the remaining deposit. At the bottom, the standard signature line read, "Thank you, Maris, for working with us." I closed the email. No applause, no fireworks. Just the quiet thud of something falling apart, finally loud enough for them to hear. The phone rang again, then again, then again. 3 missed calls, same number. I let it go to voicemail. On the 4th ring, I answered. Owen. Silence first. Then breath. Then Mom. "We need help." His voice cracked like it did when he was 7, and his science project collapsed on the kitchen floor. But this wasn't glue and cardboard. This was his wedding, and it was falling apart. The band backed out, he said. Rushed. They said the balance wasn't paid. Megan's freaking out. The planner says she can't find the backup files. Can you... I cut him off. Not harsh. Just even. "I'm not your planner anymore." More silence. I imagined him blinking at the other end, the words not quite fitting in his mouth. "But you..." "No," I said. Calm, controlled. "You removed me from the story. I'm just respecting the script." "Mom, come on." I waited. He didn't say anything else. I could hear voices in the background. Megan's sharp, panicked tone, someone typing furiously. The scrape of a chair. The sound of stress trying to keep up with time. "You said the venue was tight," I said. "You made it clear there was no place for me." "That wasn't..." He stopped. "It wasn't personal." "It was. You asked for the money, Owen, not the presents. I thought you'd want to help." I did. I had. Quietly. Fully. Until they locked me out and still expected me to smile through the window. "Is the florist canceled too?" he asked, almost a whisper. I didn't answer, because it didn't matter anymore. I had held it together for months. Booked, paid, confirmed, reminded. But they chose silence. They chose exclusion. And now they were standing in the wreckage of their own convenience. "You have the planner," I said finally. "Let her handle it." "She doesn't have your notes." "No one asked for my notes." His voice dropped. "Please." I inhaled. Slow. Long. Let the breath settle at the bottom of my ribs. "I hope the wedding is still beautiful, Owen." And then I hung up. No click. No goodbye. Just silence. I stood at the window for a long time after that. Watched the wind press against the trees. Watched a squirrel run the edge of the fence like it had somewhere to be. I didn't shake. I didn't cry. I just stood in the peace that follows a clear boundary. My phone buzzed again. This time a message. I get it. "I'm sorry. Not enough." I turned the phone face down on the table. Across the room, the lamp buzzed softly. A yellow envelope sat by the door, one I'd picked up from the lawyer's office the day before. I hadn't opened it yet, but I would. Soon. Because if they thought this was the storm, they hadn't seen what calm could do. I opened the laptop. No hesitation. No noise. Just the rhythm of control returning to my fingertips. The email drafts were already written. I had spent the last 3 nights polishing every line. No typos. No emotion. Just facts quotes. And the authority of a woman who'd read every clause while they laughed over cake samples. I opened the first tab. 9:00 a.m. Florist. Subject contract termination and refund activation body. Per clause 7B, payment was not received by the final deadline. As client of record, I am formally canceling the arrangement. Please initiate refund of deposit to Maris Langley LLC. Click. Sent. Next tab. 9:01 a.m. Venue. Subject confirmation of contract voiding failure. To remit balance by specified date activates automatic void. As the sole signatory on file, I am requesting return of all refundable deposits. Click. Sent. Next tab. 9:02 a.m. Caterer. Subject termination notice. Due to non-payment, I was informed no payment was received. Per Section 3C, the account defaults to the booking client. That's me. Click. Sent. Each click felt like breath, like heat leaving my chest. Not revenge, not anger, just return. I sipped my coffee while watching the sent folder light up. Each message had its own timestamp, its own clarity, its own echo of silence now broken. They had built a wedding on my name, but forgot to invite me. Now I was taking my name back, not loudly, not with threats or calls, just documentation. I opened my calendar, looked at the date. 5 days to go. I imagined the florist opening the inbox, reading the clause they didn't bother to double-check. I imagined the planner refreshing the catering spreadsheet and realizing her backups were tied to contracts she never signed. And Megan. I imagined Megan at brunch with her bridesmaids, laughing, adjusting her napkin, maybe saying something flippant about future in-laws and their egos. She wouldn't know. Not yet. But the cracks were spreading. By noon, they would call. They'd scramble, rebook, blame the vendors, panic. But it wouldn't matter. I had waited too long to be noticed. Now they would notice the absence of everything I'd built. My phone buzzed once. Unknown number. I let it go. I stood up, stretched my shoulders and moved to the window. The light was sharp, clean, like everything in my head had settled into lines I could finally read. On the counter, the envelope from the lawyer still waited. I picked it up, opened it. Inside, one line added to the will, one clause revised. A final sentence that rewrote the story. I folded it again, slipped it back inside. Then I turned to my laptop and checked the time. Still early. Plenty left to do. The second ring buzzed against the wood of the kitchen table. I didn't rush, didn't flinch. Just let it ring once more before lifting the phone. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. On the other end, I could hear the panic bleeding through speakerphone. A woman's voice, tight, brittle, fought to sound composed. Hi, this is Dana from Wildwood Estates. We've received a notice from Clara Events that the wedding scheduled for Saturday has been formally canceled. I'm calling to confirm that I cut in soft but clean. Yes, that cancellation notice is correct. A pause. A small inhale. I see. Are you able to tell me if this is being rescheduled or if someone else will be handling the event moving forward? No, I said. There is no reschedule. Please release the date. Another pause. A quiet click of keyboard keys. Very well. We'll proceed with the cancellation notice from Clara Events, and your deposit will be refunded as outlined in your contract. Thank you. I hung up. No extra words, no explanation. Just confirmation of what was already mine to confirm. Across town, I knew the storm would start. Megan would be the first to panic. She would laugh at first sharp dismissive. She'd say things like, "That can't be right," and "There must be a mix-up," and "I thought your mother wasn't involved anymore." And then someone would call the florist, or the caterer, or the rentals team. And the pattern would hit them, one after another. All of them canceled. All refunds redirected. All contracts signed by me. Because I was the client. Not them. Not Megan. Not Alex. Me. I opened the curtains. Let the light in. The room filled with it, soft, pale morning gold. The coffee was still warm. I picked it up, took a sip. Let it settle. 5 minutes later, the phone rang again. Owen. I stared at the screen, let it ring out once, twice. Then I hit decline. Let him call again. I checked my email. 3 new subject lines in caps, all from Megan. all full of desperation masquerading as diplomacy. I didn't open them. Not yet. I wasn't in a rush, because for the first time in months, they were the ones scrambling. They were the ones trying to piece together what they had ignored. They had stripped me from the story, but forgot they were standing on my lines. The text messages multiplied. The voicemail box pinged. The rings didn't stop. But I sat at the same table where I used to set out thank you cards and ribbon swatches. This time, nothing was wrapped in bows. This time, no one could edit me out. I sipped again and watched the storm come home. Alex, Megan's mother, always there, always helping, always present in the background like a whisper of money and judgment. She didn't plan the wedding, she produced it. Glossy, branded, sanitized. I could hear her in Megan's cadence. Polite, but firm. Sweet, but transactional. Everything that made people like me feel small without raising a voice. I cleared my throat. You need linens? Oh, just the balance. It's only about $4.50. They won't hold the delivery without it. I'll take care of it, I said. She exhaled, relieved. Thank you. Honestly, I knew I could count on you. She paused. It's not about the money, she added. It's about making it seamless. That word again, seamless. Translation quiet, controlled, pretty on the outside. I said goodbye, hung up, didn't bother to wait for her sign-off. Then I pulled the vendor sheet back out. Line item, Lux Threads. Linen Co. Final payment due Friday. I opened the contract. Read the fine print. My LLC was listed. Again. Which meant Megan didn't just ask me to pay it, she assumed I would, because the vendor still had my name as the point of contact. She hadn't updated anything. She hadn't removed me from a single invoice. Because I wasn't supposed to be seen, but I was still expected to pay. I picked up my phone again. No missed calls from Owen. Not one. I scrolled through our thread. His last message still glared. It's not about the invite. It's about family. If this was family, it felt more like billing than belonging. Then I clicked into Megan's contact, scrolled down, found her mother's number. She'd forwarded it months ago just in case you need to coordinate logistics. I saved it, but didn't call, not yet. Instead, I opened a new note on my phone, titled it, Alex's Playbook. I started writing, get Maris to do the early work. Keep Maris off the guest list. Don't remove her name, just remove her presence. Use her business to secure rates, her credit to confirm vendors. Smile. Stay sweet. Act like it's all been settled. I closed the note. Took a breath. Then I opened my laptop and queued up the linen payment. Not to send, just to time it. I'd learned something from Alex. If people want you invisible, make them think you've disappeared, and then reappear on your own terms. The knock came harder than I expected. 3 sharp raps. Not the kind of knock a stranger makes, the kind that says, I know you'll open even if you don't want to. I opened the door. Owen stood there, red-eyed, hair-tousled shirt, wrinkled at the collar like he'd yanked it on without thinking. He looked smaller, like someone had finally removed the scaffolding holding him up. I didn't think you'd actually... He stopped. Swallowed. You didn't have to do this. I didn't move, didn't invite him in. Just leaned a shoulder against the doorframe and held the man's gaze like I once held the boys. You did that, I said calm. Not me. His mouth opened. Closed. He blinked like he wanted to say something else, but the words refused him. I stepped back just long enough to grab the folder from the side table. Clear cover. Black clip. 6 contracts. I handed it to him without drama. The florist, the venue, the caterer, the chairs, the linens, the permits. My voice didn't rise. All under my name, all voided legally, all refunded to me. He didn't take it right away, just stared at it like it might explode in his hands. I trusted you, he said. I tilted my head. No, you used me, and then erased me. That's different. His shoulders slumped, the way they used to after a hard loss in high school baseball. But back then, he used to come home, drop his gear by the door, and say, "I tried, Mom." This man didn't try. He delegated. He vanished. He let someone else write over my name. He took the folder, finally. His hands trembled. I thought Megan and Alex knew what they were doing. I thought keeping you out of it would make it easier. Easier for who I asked. He didn't answer. I helped build that wedding, Owen. Quietly, generously. I kept my voice low, my head down. I wrote checks with no guarantees. And you gave me silence in return. He looked away. You think this is revenge, I said, softer now. It's not. This is clarity. You don't get to use someone's backbone and call them excessive when they finally stand up. He rubbed his face. Megan's freaking out. She says I need to fix it. I nodded. Then fix it. She says it's not her fault. I said nothing. His breath hitched just once. Then again. You're really not coming to the wedding, he asked. I stared at him. What wedding? That landed. His lips parted. But there was nothing behind them. He looked down at the folder like it could save him. Like if he read the fine print backwards, it might all rewind. I never thought you'd be the one to break it, he said. No, I replied. You broke it. I just stopped taping it back together. The wind picked up. Dry leaves scraped across the porch. He turned like he might say something else. But he didn't. He left. Not with a hug, not with an apology, just with the sound of paper in his hand and silence trailing behind him. I closed the door, locked it once, then turned off the porch light. I muted the ringer, but the notification still came. Text, voicemail, missed call, voicemail, voicemail, voicemail. I didn't check any of them. I just sipped my coffee and watched the screen light up again. 9:23 a.m. venue canceled. Can you help? 9:26 a.m. They said you voided the florist contract. 9:31 a.m. Mom, please call me back. I leaned back in the chair and stared out the window. The sky was clear, the same kind of September blue that Frank used to say was wedding weather. I wondered what he'd say now, if he'd be proud of me for staying calm or worried I'd gone cold. They didn't know the collapse had already started last week. I just let gravity do the rest. At 9:47 a.m., my phone rang again. This time I let it go to voicemail. Then I tapped the message open. It was Megan. Her voice was clipped, high-pitched. The caterer just canceled. There's no one else. This isn't funny. Do you want Owen to hate you forever? I didn't respond. I didn't save it. 10 minutes later, another message. The chairs are gone. The chairs, Maris, I'm standing in the empty tent. It's just fabric. No one's coming. What do you want from us? I exhaled slowly, stood, walked to the cabinet, pulled out a granola bar, chewed, swallowed. They thought I wanted something. Revenge, maybe. A grovel, a re-invite. They still hadn't understood. I had already left the conversation weeks ago. Now they were shouting into a room I no longer stood in. By noon, the news spread. Someone on their side must have called the backup DJ. Someone else must have tried to book a Plan B florist. But weekend weddings in September. You book those months in advance, not hours. I knew. Because I used to be the one who made sure everything ran right. Then the phone rang again. A number I didn't recognize. But I knew the voice the second she spoke. Maris. It's Alex. There it was. Cool, polished, edges sharpened by disappointment. I'm sure there's been a misunderstanding, she began. I said nothing. She continued. If we can resolve this quickly, I'm sure the vendors will still work with us. The guests are already flying in. We can adjust the schedule. We can even acknowledge I cut her off. You said there was no place for me, I said flatly. Now there's no place at all. Silence. Longer than I expected. I didn't fill it. She clicked her tongue. Is this really the example you want to set for your son? I smiled. Then I ended the call. I put the phone down, let it vibrate again, then again. Then I turned it face down, not in anger, in peace. I rinsed my cup, dried it with a towel, and placed it back on the shelf. Outside, a car door slammed. Someone yelling in the distance. Not at me, not for me. Let them scramble. Let them realize I was no longer part of their crisis. Not because I couldn't help, but because I finally chose not to. I turned off the notifications, then turned them back on, then off again. The group chat had gone dark. No more final head count. No more photos of champagne flutes or centerpieces or bridesmaids rehearsing their entrances. Just an empty bar at the top of the screen that once read, Owen and Megan, wedding weekend. Now it just said, you left the group. Correction, you were removed. I closed the app. Opened my email. Nothing new. Opened it again an hour later. Still nothing. They weren't just furious. They were quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after fireworks, after furniture's been thrown, after everyone's screamed themselves empty. Megan blocked me. I noticed when her name disappeared from the contact list. I checked once. Didn't check again. Owen hadn't replied since that day on the porch. No follow-up, no call, no message explaining, no late-night "I'm sorry" voice memo. Just silence. I washed my coffee mug, set it in the drying rack, wiped the counter out of habit, turned off the kettle even though it hadn't been on. The air felt stiller than usual. Not peaceful, just unused. I picked up the phone, scrolled to the messages, read the last one aloud, like saying it might help it make sense. You didn't have to do this. But I did. Because they made it clear I wasn't invited, just expected. They'd made a space for my money, not my presence. I stood by the window. The trees were still green, but the shadows were longer now. End of September. Cooling down, then a buzz. I didn't move. Another buzz. This one a message. From Owen. Just one line. I don't know how to fix this. That was all. Not "I'm sorry," not "I messed up," not "you didn't deserve that." Just a cracked sentence from a grown man who finally ran out of script. I stared at it. Not angry, not triumphant, just hollow. I typed 3 words, then deleted them. Typed something else. Deleted that too. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because for once I didn't owe the next line. I left it blank. Closed the message. Sat on the couch. And listened. No one called, no one knocked, no one barged in with last-minute plans or apologies dressed up as excuses. Just whined outside the window. A faint click from the refrigerator. The quiet murmur of a world that didn't demand anything from me anymore. And I didn't fill it. I let it sit, let it stretch out across the room and tuck itself into the corners like dust. I thought it would ache. That silence. But it didn't. It just felt honest. The bank pinged. One notification, then another, then a third. I opened the app. $3,500 from Wildwood Estates, $4,200 from Artisan Flora, $2,500 from Thompson and Rye Catering. Each marked refund, Clara Events. Each time-stamped, each real. I stared at the numbers a moment longer than I needed to. Not out of greed, not victory, just quiet recognition. I'd sent the first deposits months ago, back when Megan still called me Maris with fake sweetness, and Owen still picked up the phone on the first ring. Back when I thought helping plan their wedding would earn me a seat at the table, maybe even a smile. I clicked into my files, created a new folder, named it Simple Recovered, dragged the confirmation PDFs one by one, florist, venue, caterer, rentals, all signed, all paid, all undone. Not a single contract had been challenged. Not one vendor had pushed back. Because all of them knew what mattered most in a transaction, the name on the line. That name had always been mine. I scrolled further down my drive past the spreadsheets and RSVP lists until I found the old folder labeled Wedding, Shared. I opened it one last time. Every photo, every font choice, every timeline and seating chart. Comments still hovered over certain rows. Let's move this guest to the balcony. Can we seat Alex's cousins near the front? Move Mom to table 12 if needed. If needed. I remembered that note. I remembered the sting of reading it like my presence was an afterthought, even in my own spreadsheet. I clicked the 3 dots. Selected delete. The screen asked if I was sure. I was. Gone. I emptied the trash folder next. No second glance. The silence in the room didn't shift. No dramatic music, no thunderclap. Just my own breathing and the distant hum of the dishwasher. I leaned back in the chair, rolled my shoulders, sipped cold coffee. The refund didn't fix everything. It didn't return the time. Didn't rewind the nights I stared at the ceiling, wondering if I should send one more message to clear the air. It didn't soften Megan's tone or bring back the boy who used to call me Mama with scraped knees and open hands. But it did return something else. My name, my boundaries, my space. I went to the kitchen, grabbed the small yellow sticky notes from the drawer, and wrote one word in bold marker, done. I stuck it to the inside of my filing cabinet. Closed the drawer with both hands. There would be no second guessing, no resending, no reopening, only forward. I drove past the venue without blinking. No chairs, no music, no guests parking in rows. Just an empty lot scattered with wind-blown napkins and one folding sign that had fallen face down in the dirt. The kind of silence you don't hear often, too quiet to be peaceful, too loud to be ignored. I kept my hands steady on the wheel. No detour, no curiosity. A man in a rental tux paced outside phone, pressed to his ear, voice sharp. Maybe a cousin, maybe a vendor. Didn't matter. I didn't slow down. They could blame me. They could curse me. They could write me out of the story twice over. I wouldn't flinch. The last message I received was from Megan. 4 words. No punctuation. You ruined everything, Maris. She didn't say hello. Didn't say how. Didn't say why. Just accusation hurled like a brick through glass and expected me to pick up the shards. But I didn't. I didn't even open the message thread again. Some words don't need to be answered. Some wounds aren't mine to clean. I turned off the main road, took the long way back toward town. Past the diner where Owen used to beg for pancakes at midnight. Past the park where Frank taught him to ride a bike without training wheels. I remembered the scraped knees, the cheering, the ice cream bribe afterward. And I let the memories pass like mile markers, real but behind me now. There was no wedding today. No walk down the aisle. No vows. No bouquet toss. No cake. Because they thought I was disposable. Because they thought love came with a signature and a check. But I never canceled anything. I simply stopped carrying it for them. I let their deadlines pass. Let their debts collect. Let their illusions shatter under the weight of their own neglect. Not as revenge. Not as a lesson. Just as truth. Quiet, clean, steady. I pulled into my driveway, parked, opened the door. The house didn't feel empty. It felt mine. Inside, the coffee was still warm in the pot. I poured a mug, sat in my favorite chair, tucked my legs under the blanket Frank used to pull over my shoulders without asking. The clock ticked softly on the mantel. No noise, no footsteps, no guilt. Just the stillness that follows when you stop waiting for an apology that was never coming. And in that silence, I packed. I unzipped the suitcase. No overthinking. Just rolled clothes, flat shoes, a paperback I never finished. One coat, one charger. No heels, no makeup bag, no wedding gift. The zipper caught for a second on the side. I didn't fix it. Just nudged it until it closed. It didn't need to be perfect. It just needed to come with me. The suitcase clicked shut. I placed it by the door. Passport, wallet, phone, No note, no forwarding address, not even a text. The flight had been booked 7 days ago quietly, with points I'd been hoarding for years. Non-refundable. Non-negotiable. Just a one-way break from everything that didn't see me. I didn't clean the house, didn't water the plants. I left the laundry folded on the bed. The fridge had a few things left inside, enough for someone to think I'd be back. But I wouldn't. The driver arrived 10 minutes early. I didn't say much, just nodded, slid into the back seat and stared out the window as we pulled away. The town looked different that morning. Empty, paused. The way places look right after a storm when the world hasn't decided what comes next. The airport was half full, not loud, just a murmur of movement. I walked through it like I'd done this 100 times, because I had. But not like this. No one was expecting me. No one saw me off. No one waved. I handed over my boarding pass, stepped through security. Shoes off. Belt in the tray. Phone in the bin. It all went quickly. Efficient. Like I didn't matter enough to be stopped. At the gate, I sat down. Didn't scroll. Didn't check my email. Just stared at the tarmac. Boarding began. Group 4. I waited. When they called my row, I stood, walked forward, placed my phone in my coat pocket without looking. Halfway down the jet bridge, it buzzed. Once, then again. Then it didn't stop. I pulled it out. 1 missed call, then 5, then 20. By the time I reached my seat, the number was at 73. I sat, buckled in, turned off notifications. The screen flashed again, 110 missed calls. No voicemails, no texts, just missed calls. I didn't open any of them. Didn't need to. The plane rolled back from the gate. I looked out the window. Not crying, not smiling, just breathing. Not everyone gets to leave on their own terms. I did, and I was still going. I turned the key. The door opened, slow hinges catching slightly from salt in the air. I stepped into stillness. Hardwood floors. Pale walls. A window facing the ocean that didn't need curtains. No fanfare. Just light and breath and room. I dropped the suitcase. Took off my shoes. Walked barefoot through the quiet, touching nothing, just feeling, letting it happen. The kitchen was small. Enough. A kettle. A French press. 1 chipped mug in the cupboard. That was all I needed. I filled the kettle, clicked it on, waited. No flowers on the counter, no guests arriving late, no dresses to steam, no checklists, just steam. I found the chair by the window, dragged it closer, opened the window halfway, let the air spill in. It smelled like tidewater and hibiscus and nothing broken. The kettle hissed. I poured. No cream, no sugar, just coffee. Hot, strong, earned. I carried the mug to the window, sat. Didn't cross my legs, didn't shrink. From my bag, I pulled the binder, the same one I carried into every vendor meeting, the one they never asked about, the one they thought held invoices. It held signatures, ownership, clauses they never read, and now it held a deed. To this place, in my name. Clara Events LLC dissolved. Clara House Maui mine. I didn't need to frame it, just to feel it. The weight of ink on paper that no one could take back. I took a sip. It burned a little, but it didn't hurt. Outside, a bird landed on the railing, looked at me, tilted its head, then flew off. Nothing poetic, just motion. I sat for a long time, watched the horizon shift from blue to gold, listened to waves, not to silence because this wasn't silence. This was the absence of demand, of expectation, of apology. This was what happened when you weren't erased. This was what happened when you stopped asking to be included. I pulled out a notepad, tore off the first page, wrote 1 sentence, folded it, slid it under the mug, took another sip. The chair didn't creak, and I didn't move.